Welcome to the Terrible Podcast with your hosts from SteelersDepot.com, where you can find all your latest and greatest Steelers news. It's Dave Bryan and Alex Kozora, always lit, talking Steelers. And now, here's Dave and Alex.
Welcome to the Terrible Podcast, Season 11, Episode 32. He's Dave Bryan. I'm Alex Kozora, SteelersDepot.com. Glad to be back with you guys for this Monday, this Victory Monday for the Pittsburgh Steelers as they move on to 5-0 after blowing out the Cleveland Browns. Dave, we're going to talk about the game today and how kind of old school it felt in terms of the Pittsburgh Steelers blowing out the Browns. But before we do that, we do want to share a piece of unfortunate news to begin the show on a somber note. That really good friend of the show, great guest. I know many Terrible Podcast listeners have been a big fan of him over the years. Dave T. Thomas passed away last week, sadly, after a battle with cancer. And so just want to take a couple of moments to begin the show to bring that news to you guys. Most people are listening to the beginning of the show as opposed to the end of the show, and just kind of reflect on Dave T. and such a really good person, a really valuable guest to the show, and someone that will be really missed by us and the NFL scouting community.
Yeah, absolutely. And I thought about this the last couple of days of when would be the right time to kind of talk about this on the show, and especially after such an exciting. And look, I mean, let's face it, you blow out the Browns. It's an exciting time. The Steelers heading into Week 7, key game against the also unbeaten Tennessee Titans, and everything's riding high, and you want to get this show off to a fast start talking about the game. But the more I thought about it, the more I thought, paying tribute to Dave T early in this show, I think is the proper thing to do, and kind of reflecting on him. I mean, look, we have plenty of time to talk about this game, and we will here starting here pretty soon. But it hit pretty hard, even though, look, he told us, on his final appearance there, back draft time there, that, he had cancer. And, I said to him, look, no, that's not going to be your last time on the show, that kind of thing. Look, he was taking it in stride. I think he knew he was headed out, to Hawaii at that time to have a little rest and relaxation, I guess, if you will. And unfortunate things played out the way it did with him. Obviously not totally unexpected, but just reflecting a little bit on what Dave T has meant, not only to the scouting community, the college and pro football world, and really this podcast as well too. I came across some of his writings, I think, way back in 2010. Obviously the podcast was just getting underway at the time. Barely knew what I was doing at the time. Still from a blogging and a podcast. I guess some people still say I'm still don't know what I'm doing, but thought it would be a good idea, good content to have him. Didn't know much about him overall. After reading his work online, but after reading some of his stuff, figured that he'd probably be a good guest to have on the podcast to talk pre-draft stuff. And after we had him on that first time, I wasn't sure what had hit me, Alex. I joke about that all the time, and I had to go back and listen to that interview 3 or 4 times, and really felt like I got hit by a truck, and was really kind of unsure, even after we had it down on tape, what the listeners were going to think about him, because let's face it, the guy goes 90-0, kind of unorthodox, I think, kind of in delivery. You give him one player to talk about, you get 6 more back in return. I think that was always the running kind of joke with Dave T there. And boy, the emails started to flow in right away. People loved him. It became obviously an annual thing with him, and really over the last, 5 or 6 years, it became, we couldn't get him on the show quick enough. People would email in and say, when you going to get Dave T? When you going to get Dave T? And it's kind of thing that, look, we had to catch up to where Dave T was, whether it be me, you, or, David Todd, when he was co-hosting and all. We had to get an idea of who these players were. So that obviously slowed down. We wanted to make sure we were doing our part and throwing out good names and being able to talk about these players as well, too. So it wasn't because Dave T wasn't, in no way, shape, or prepared or would have come on earlier. It's just that we had to catch up with him, and it was just amazing, all the response year in, year out to people, demanding that he be on the show, wanting to know when he'd be on the show. Several that listen to this show will still probably let us know that some of the best shows we've ever had in the history of this podcast included Dave T. You just go back and hope somebody, and maybe I will, I don't know, maybe Paul Crane, his longtime broadcast partner, if you will at some point. But a book or a long read form post needs to be written about Dave T and really his early days. I knew quite a bit about him. Obviously started, I think, at 14, handwritten reports on to Al Davis. I'm sure there's a lot of other stories mixed in there. And the thing, Alex, and I know I'm going on quite a bit here, but I think it kind of needs to be said. I obviously never, heck, I have never met you face to face. Most everybody I deal with on the blog and the podcast, I never have met, and that's an unusual aspect, especially kind of the business relationship that you and I have, the one that I and Matthew Marksy have and have run for so many years now here. I'd never met Dave T either, but I felt like I knew Dave T enough over the years that I could call him a friend. And the thing about Dave T is when you would call him to even set up an interview with him, you wish you had the damn recorder running, because you could not get on the phone just for 5 minutes and say, "Hey, Dave, we want to have you on, Wednesday, whatever time." There was no such thing as a 5-minute phone conversation with Dave T. At minimum, those things ran 20 minutes, and once again, he's already into talking about players. He's already talking about what he's hearing about the Steelers, about he's hearing league-wide, and he's just that kind of guy. It's what he did. It consumed him. You could not just have a regular conversation, hey, how you doing? Can you be on the show without getting into it with him? Obviously, his delivery, man, you want to talk about pre-Mel Kiper, if you will. And about somebody, not many people are going to get this reference, but I kind of gave it to my wife the other day when passing on the word about Dave T. There was a heavy metal band back in the 80s called Anvil, and Anvil was kind of one of the pioneers, if you will, in kind of the early metal, in early 80s metal stage there. Well, all these bands were coming out at the same time, and somehow Anvil, even though they were doing these Monsters of Rock concerts, and a lot of people knew about Anvil, they never hit it big for whatever reason. And man, you go back and you look at all the albums after albums that they produced, and they even have a documentary movie released a couple years ago about them, kind of showing the trials and tribulations that they went through back in the 80s. But they were so good, but yet they never hit it big, and all these bands were just flying past them, hitting it big, getting these big record deals, and Anvil never did. I sort of kind of, and I once again, a lot of people aren't going to get that analogy, but my wife certainly did when talking. Dave T was Mel Kiper before Mel Kiper, and quite honestly, no disrespect to Mel Kiper, he was quite better than Mel Kiper, and he still had the big personality on top of it. Dave T would not run away from being controversial on a prospect, from start to end. So Man, I don't know what more to put out there in words, just from my relationship as it goes with Dave T. And look, it just didn't stop there. I mean, after we would have him on, Alex, year after year, the email after email of the scouting reports that he would send. And folks, these weren't just a lot of them I couldn't share because of media media regulations, and him being kind of the official bio, I guess, draft writer, if you will, for the NFL. A lot of these were very in depth. You would read these things not only from a broken down by a year aspect, and statistical aspect included in those things, that you knew a lot about these players before you turned on the tape on them. And he would send those out, and I know, bless his heart, man, he would tell our listeners, he would give out that his own email, and I know people just ate him alive with that. He joked that thousands of emails, just these most recent shows that he sent out to listeners, would pack full of these scouting reports and all. And he didn't earn one penny off of that stuff. Just the kind of guy that Dave T was always giving back in that realm. And I want to kind of wrap it up. And there's a lesson, I think, to be learned about Dave T and Dave T's life here, if you will, to kind of wrap a bow around this. And I hope everybody's listening. Is one thing that I've kind of tried to do the later stages of my life. I wish I would have done it earlier in my life. Dave T's passion was football and scouting, and a lot of people don't realize he scouted more than just football as well too. He's obviously known to us in football, but Dave T's passion right from an early age was scouting in sports and doing what he did. And that passion, he poured himself into it, and it became a money maker. It became the way he lived his life and made his money, if you will. And there's a lesson to be learned there. If you're passionate about something, you should pour everything you have into it. And we're all told, or at least most of us are, right from the get-go, if you find your passion, you dedicate yourself to it, even if it's for free at the start, the money will follow. And I think that's a great. I think Dave T is a great example of that. So hopefully, look, Dave T won't soon be forgotten by me, and I know by you, Alex. I know by all of our listeners. It's a huge loss, in the industry here, and draft season will not be the same at all for me and for the podcast and for our listeners, I don't think, moving forward. So. But I know I kind of rambled there. I know it's kind of long, but I thought it needed to be done here. And with that, I'll open it up to you, Alex. And I know you've only been co-hosting the show for a couple years now and all. But obviously you sat in on a lot of episodes before that. If you want to just mention some words about kind of what Dave T meant to you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, I think that was a beautiful eulogy of Dave T, Dave, and so thank you for that. The things I would just say is that when you talk to Dave T, you knew you were getting his opinion, no one else's. You watch TV, and these media types are always worried about relationships and the potential for controversy and criticism and things like that and backlash, and Dave T wasn't concerned with that. He was going to give you his opinion, and more often than not, it was the right opinion ultimately. I remember him talking about the Steelers' interest in Brian Allen right before the Steelers took him in the draft. Hardman in Kansas City, how the Chiefs love that kid and they trade up for him. He was just right about the information, so much more than almost any other draft analyst that I've ever seen. And as you mentioned, not only was he great at his job, he was very kind with the community, with us. He didn't have to come on our show the first time at all. He didn't have to come on our show year after year, especially during draft season, which I'm sure was an unbelievably busy time for him, but he did. And as you mentioned, I mean, the number of people who said, I wrote Dave T an email asking a question about the draft after I heard him on your show, and he always responded back, always responded to the listeners. And so just that humility that he showed, that he wasn't better than anyone else, even though he had this big platform, certainly didn't have to respond to the community, but he always made time for us, always made time for the listeners. And we certainly, sincerely, truly appreciate that. And as you said, Dave, it is a massive loss for the scouting community. Our thoughts and prayers go out to his family and his loved ones, and Paul Crane, his co-host on Scouts Honor, the podcast that they've been doing for the last couple of years, and certainly a man who will truly be missed.
Absolutely, and once again, we knew this wasn't a huge shock. I mean, although you still get that lump in your throat once you, and evidently this happened. I don't know why it took a few extra days for it to circle around and us find out about it. But obviously found out a couple of days after it happened. There, Paul Crane had announced it on Twitter, and I must have missed it until I think you found it and tweeted it out there. But it still hit hard just because knowing what all Dave T has meant to the show and all. And look, there's some great clips Paul Crane has on his Twitter feed, and I think if you go to Vimeo as well too, there's some old clips of Dave T as well too. At some point we'll have Paul Crane on, I think, Alex, and we'll talk a little bit more about the life and times of Dave T and all like that. And I'm trying to effort to some of the stuff about his services and stuff like that, so I can send something from the site as well too. So God bless Dave T, and he will not soon be forgotten.
I'm looking forward to that scouting report on God from Dave T one day. All right, Dave, let's go ahead and take a quick break, and then we'll come back and talk Steelers. All right, and welcome back to the Terrible Podcast. And as promised, we are talking Week 6 Pittsburgh Steelers with a 38-7 blowout victory over the Cleveland Browns. Pittsburgh moves to 5-0 on the season. And Dave, Ben said it yesterday. I kind of had that feel yesterday. I had that feel this morning. It's getting chilly, fall weather here in Pennsylvania, and it kind of felt like a school day for me back in 2005, where it was just a very classic Pittsburgh dominates from start to finish game over the Cleveland Browns.
Yeah, boy, look, that was the defense that I thought that we might see most of the season here. Kind of swarming, just getting after it, rushing coverage, going hand in hand. And this Browns team. Obviously you look back at the games they played so far, but then I think most notably you look back at the most recent game that they played against the Colts, another good defense, or at least started the season, a good defense there, and they moved the ball quite easily at different times during that game. So you kind of came into this knowing, this might not be the same old Browns, if you will, at least from a Browns offensive perspective. Boy, they made that Browns offense look just like old times, if you will, most recent times there. So quite an impressive showing. We talked about, I know there's been some Finch clinching lately about the Steelers defense the tape not necessarily matching some of the statistics that we like to use. I think Alex and I have both said over the last couple weeks, let's give it a couple more games and see how this thing plays out. I wasn't ready to jump to conclusions just based off of what we had seen, most specifically against the game against the Eagles there. I mean, this was can you say ass kicking on a podcast?
Well, you did. It's our podcast. I think we can do it.
All right.
It's true. It's accurate.
That's what it was right from the get-go. And look, I kind of wondered, and I think I made it clear that one thing that was evident this is why you got to watch the tape, right, Alex? You got to go watch the tape. That's why a lot of our guys do. Even if it's just a TV tape, you got to watch it. At least a couple of games when previewing these opponents and all. One thing that really stuck out when going through that tape about the Colts was at the end of that game is when Baker Mayfield took a couple of hits there. He did not look right at all, and I think I said on the preview there that I won't be surprised at all if Baker Mayfield doesn't doesn't finish this game, because you had to know if they got a chance, if the Steelers got on top of them, jumped on top of them, and really even if they didn't, they were going to come out with the mentality of trying to hit Baker early and often in this game. And the way that kid was looking at the end of that Colts game, and the way the practice reports last week were about him not being full, him getting better every day, those ribs are, chest kind of sore there. You kind of felt that maybe this was coming. And boy, they got after him. And I got to be honest with you, I'm not sure Kevin Stefanski made the right decision in leaving him in after halftime there. That kid was done at the half. Nothing was going to change in the second half there. Okay, Baker's not a wuss. Yada yada. There comes a point where you got to make a business decision or a franchise decision. And he's lucky he didn't get that kid killed at the beginning of the second half.
The hit that felt like ended Baker was that hit by Kim Hayward near the end of the half, where Dupree got him at first, held him up, they hadn't blown the whistle, and then Hayward was, and I've said this many times before, but it just feels true every time, one of the most vicious hits I've seen from Hayward, just absolutely blasted Mayfield, legally, cleanly, of course, and then Mayfield took several seconds to get up off the ground, and at that point you just knew this guy is done. So credit for Baker for being tough, hanging in there, but they did a terrible job of protecting him. The line was missing some pieces, and the Steelers were just a more physical bunch in the trenches on both sides of the football, and ultimately that was the determining factor in this one.
That looked like a car crash with a dead body at the end of it.
What's that movie line? You kids want to see a dead body? That is Baker Mayfield.
Stand By Me, right?
I'm
surprised you know what that movie's older than a lot older than you are. But at that point he was done at that. He was done before then, but he was really done at that point. And you mentioned, I don't know which way we want to start on this. Before, I don't want to get too deep into the breakdown here, but man, that defensive front for the Steelers, it just man, Cameron Hayward on Joe Bitonio. There were a couple times where he just walked him easily back. Tyson Alualu, what the hell's going on there, Alex? I want some of whatever he's been on this season, and it's rare. It's to me, it's kind of rare at times, unless you're not named Aaron Donald, to pick up on TV tape guys jumping off of TV tape on interior defensive line. But even the first run through of that game last night, which was late for me, Stephon Tuitt jumped off the tape, and I have a feeling we're going to have some nice Easter eggs there when it comes to the All-22 being released later today. I thought Tyson Alualu and Stephon Tuitt played a heck of a games. I thought Cameron Hayward, for the most part, played a good game. That whole front, man, there was nothing that it seemed like almost every other snap, they were getting after Baker Mayfield. We didn't see him be able to move the pocket as much as we talked about him probably liking to do in this game. Those hits just started getting in his mind as well too, and his bad decision early on in the game, which we'll talk about here, I think all played into him just not wanting to be at Heinz Field on Sunday.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was a good old-fashioned butt whooping. I'll have the cleaner approach to the phrase you used earlier. Of course, it did come at a cost with Devin Bush's injury. We have not forgotten that. Obviously, we'll talk about that in a little bit, but it was just a complete win in the trenches on both sides of the football. As I mentioned, as you said, Hayward, Tyson, Tuitt just absolutely controlled the line of scrimmage repeatedly, the whole front. I mean, on multiple 4th and 1s, 4th and 2s. The Browns could not convert on the ground. And then offensively for Pittsburgh, James Conner ran well. The line blocked well and overall won at the point of attack and did a much better job of keeping Ben cleaner than what the Browns did with Baker Mayfield. But this run defense overall, Dave, I mean, the Browns came into that game, best run offense in football, 188 yards per game, 5.5 yards per carry. They ended it 75 yards yesterday, 3.7, I believe, yards per carry, and that was influenced partially by a couple of garbage time, 15-plus yard runs by Dearness Johnson. So this run defense, to me, is the best in football. It's not even close. They're physical. They're aggressive. They can one gap. They can two gap. They play 11-man run defense where corner support, safeties get involved, fill the alleys. And they'll have another really important matchup against the Titans this upcoming weekend. Of course, that'll be a 5-star matchup. But this run defense is as good as a run defense as I've ever seen, and that's including the '08 and the '05 Steelers that were right up there.
Absolutely, it is, and we talked about that Miles Sanders run a couple weekends ago, and uh, it's okay. It's okay to turn your head on certain plays like that, and I think even going back a couple years ago, the run against the Seahawks. Okay, uh, do you like those to happen? No. They're occasionally going to happen. The worst thing about that whole run is it ended up in the end zone as opposed to having a few blades of grass to defend, if you will. Those are going to happen. That's why I was not so much worried about that after that game, especially what all transpired against the run after that. This is a good run defense, and look, they will. We keep saying, well, they're going to get a test. They're going to get a test. They're going to get a test. Well, they're going to get a test on Sunday against the Tennessee Titans because Derrick Henry, man, I don't know how much you've got to watch of that Titans Texans game. That guy is, and I've put that out there before. And look, I think most running backs in the NFL are fungible. I'll never stop believing that. But if there's one that's less fungible than the rest, it might be him. That guy is a horse, man. That guy is like a thoroughbred Kentucky Derby horse. I mean, the way he's built, the way he runs, violent. Nobody wants a piece of that guy when he gets loose in there. So you want to talk about a test? That'll be a test for the Steelers defense at Nissan Stadium in Nashville in Week 7 on Sunday. Mm-hmm. So, but yeah, all right. Well, that's the 30,000-foot view, I guess. Now, where should we start?
Well, I just want to make one last point about the run defense and just this team overall, because it applies in all aspects of the game. They're a very good tackling unit, and that's obvious to say, but if you want to play good run defense, you better be good tacklers, especially with how aggressive this Steelers defense can play. They're shooting TJ Watt off ball into the A-gap. They're run blitzing with Vince Williams, run blitzing with Mike Hilton. They're being really aggressive, and if you can't make that tackle at the first level, then the running back's going to have daylight in the second level. And so they get the running back on the ground immediately. Again, aside from the occasional missed tackle like the Miles Sanders long touchdown run against the Eagles last weekend, but those misses are few and far between. This team runs the ball, they run hard, they gang tackle, and they get the guy on the ground. And so that is just stellar, fundamental team run defense, and I cannot say enough about the job this front seven, this whole defense did against the Browns' rushing attack yesterday.
Right, absolutely.
All right, Dave, when do we want to touch the elephant in the room with Devin Bush and that unfortunate, reported, not officially confirmed by the team, but all but so at this point, with that torn ACL in his left knee that is going to end his season? And as nice as that win was yesterday over the Browns, and it was a really good win, and really excited about this one, it does come with that sour note of Devin Bush being done for the season.
Yeah, absolutely. And look, injuries are part of this, right? And for the most part, the Steelers have been healthy. For the most part. Obviously, did not have David DeCastro or Deontay Johnson for that game on Sunday against the Browns. But both those guys obviously aren't season-ending injuries either. There, they did lose Zach Banner early in week 1 to an ACL. Look, what can you say? It sucks. It's very unfortunate. It's one of those things that you kind of wonder, had the running back caught the pass, or had the player caught the pass and Bush, been able to just follow through maybe with the course of action there, maybe he doesn't suffer that injury there. But when he planted that left leg and immediately went down and was kind of clutching that left knee there, You kind of had that sick feeling go through your stomach that you see, and obviously the report, it didn't take long. Look, Mike Tomlin called it a significant injury after the game. It didn't take too long for a few reports to say that he tore the ACL in his left knee. That will obviously, if indeed true, require season-ending surgery, and thus he is done. So. You're just going to have to bite the bullet and move on. And the first guy off the bench, and I know you and I had some conversations of who that person might be throughout the preseason there. I thought it might be Spillane, and it was. And to be quite honest with you, I thought he played above the line within that, and I think he wore the green dot from that point forward as well too. Now,
Mm-hmm.
obviously, the game was pretty much got in hand, not too terribly long into the second half there, but. I think he's the next. I think Mike Tomlin, in so many words, said at the game, he's the next man up. I think he should be the next man up. Obviously, they'll have Marcus Allen and UG3 also active. A lot of people are already calling for this team to go outside and pull another Minka trade or sign somebody off the street. Alex, I'm going to be surprised if that happens, to be quite honest with you. If they do sign anybody, I think it's more of a younger, inexperienced player, maybe to help out on special teams, because right now I'm not so sure you want Robert Spillane, who's probably one of your top one or two special teamers, to play on special teams, because you're going to be logging so many snaps on defense.
Is that a no to a trade or signing, or are you less likely to see a signing and you think a trade is possible? Or are you equally pessimistic on both ideas?
I'm pessimistic on both ideas.
Okay.
I understand. Look, people don't know a lot about him. That's why they're calling for this. Okay, and look, this was, you and I both agree this was one of the position groups here that you really didn't want to see hit by injury. The one that maybe injury could hit the hardest on, and it's purely from an experience kind of standpoint as well too. Because look, Marcus Allen, I mean, this guy was a safety up until this year, and now an inside linebacker, and then UG3. This is a guy that only got in the helmet once, since so far this season, and losing out to a guy like Spillane. But I think if you go back and I remember talking about Spillane during the preseason last year in a couple of games that he had. I think he's got a level of athlete. He's no Devin Bush, okay? Nobody is. There's big shoes to fill. But he's got a level of athleticism to him, and obviously a physical enough guy, a good tackler. He deserves to get the first crack here, and. You take him off special teams, which will be a loss for sure. But I don't think you do much other than that. Will they look outside the organization? Well, they'd be obviously foolish not to at least take a look around and see what's out there. But to expect somebody to come in, look, this is a situation. He is LJ Fort Part 2, okay? In my opinion here. We all remember what happened a few years ago with LJ Fort. A guy that kind of went, a lot of people didn't know about, had a good showing taking over in that game against the Ravens, deserved the start, deserved to be the every down guy kind of moving forward there, was not afforded that opportunity. The team brought in Sean Spence back to the team. For some reason, decided to even play Arthur Moats and Sean Spence a lot more than they did LJ Fort. It was a huge mistake at that point. I will be surprised if they bring anybody of notable in right away via street free agent or trade.
Yeah, I don't think there's really any chance for. Well, I shouldn't say that. I think it's very unlikely for a street free agent. I think a trade is also unlikely, maybe slightly more likely, just because you'll have someone that's in football shape and maybe a better athlete available. But overall, as you said earlier, you really couldn't afford to lose anybody here, and you certainly could not afford to lose Devin Bush, because I know the standard in Pittsburgh, and it'll be a mantra that I'm sure Mike Tomlin will express tomorrow, assuming this is a season-ending injury, which we're almost certain that it is next man up. But it's impossible to replace Devin Bush with just one guy. It's got to be next men up. And so Spillane, I thought, did a really nice job yesterday. I think he will get the official start next to Vince Williams for probably the remainder of the season, but it'll be interesting to see how they may work Marcus Allen or UG3 into the rotation, into maybe some more passing situations. I don't know exactly how this is going to go because there's an issue of obviously replacing Devin Bush against the run, replacing Devin Bush in coverage, and then maybe most importantly of all, replacing Devin Bush as the signal caller. And we know Spillane wore the green dot yesterday. Will he continue to wear that green dot? Will it go to Vince Williams? Will it go to Minka or Watt or someone else? We're not quite sure. And so trying to bring someone new into the fold, unless you're really confident that guy can be a 3-down guy and call your defense, which is a big, tall task in the middle of October here, probably doesn't make a whole lot of sense. It's just adding another guy into that division of labor where you already have a bunch of guys working right now. So obviously a massive loss for this defense. You just can't replace what Bush could give you sideline to sideline, carrying tight ends vertically down the seam. Spillane, though, was impressive yesterday. His calling card is getting downhill, being physical, a great tackler, reliable tackler, and not the worst athlete in the world. I always compared him to a more athletic version of Dirty Red. So he's not a hyper athlete, of course. His team's going to be tested by tight ends and running backs with Vince Williams and Spillane out there, so that may be where you incorporate more of UG3 or Allen. I'm not sure, but I just don't think, and it's obvious to say, but I don't think you can replace Devin Bush with just one guy.
I think they got a better chance of doing that than most people think with Spillane. I think there are going to be some situations where maybe you see an Allen or UG3 on the field. Look, this is your defensive quarterback position here. Okay, all due respect to Vince Williams, who can wear the green dot and all. I'm still not sure that you want. I still don't think they want Vince Williams on the field every down. Okay.
Well, do you want Spillane in the field every down? I don't think you want either guy. Ideally, that's why you drafted him.
I think I'm more apt to have Spillane on it than Vince Williams, to be honest with you. And I've kind of felt that way. You know the way I've kind of felt about this for a while here. So I mean that's my view on it. I don't think you're just going to bring people. Just think you just go out there and pull another Minka here, and who knows? Maybe they will try to trade for a veteran guy that's used to be in the signal caller. But you just don't get somebody come in, even a veteran like that, and take over right out of the chute and be the quarterback of a defense like that. You know?
Sure.
I just don't see that. And if you do bring someone in to via a trade or off the street, that player's got to be young enough too. Them linebackers got to play special teams if they're not starting. End of story. End of story. You know, and by people throwing around, I think Miles Jack name and all like that. Miles Jack ain't gonna come in and play no special teams for you, Jack. I mean, if you got a guy like him to come in, and you traded for him or whatnot, you're doing so for him to start. And I just don't. You know, Mike Tomlin preaches that next man up mentality, and he's gonna. I have a feeling he's gonna put his money where his mouth is. You know, in this, so it'll be some conglomeration, machination of Spillane and Marcus Allen and Gilbert and all like that. Look, even our own Tom Meade brought up a suggestion. I don't think it's a bad one either. Who's the Cal linebacker Weaver is currently on the Cardinals practice squad. The Steelers seem to have some some liking to him during the pre-draft process. It's a bit of a stretch, but I mean, if you were looking to add a guy to the 53-man roster that can help you out on special teams first and foremost, which I think should be the thing that they're looking for. I think Evan Weaver might kind of be that guy. It's not going to be popular. What's Tyler Matakevich doing over with the Buffalo Bills right now? You know, I'm not looking at it from a defensive standpoint, but that guy's a special teams demon still to this day. I don't think they're ready to unload him, especially with the way their season's going and all. But they like some familiarity. Mark Barron, what's going on with Mark Barron over in Denver? It kind of sours my stomach to think about it, but they like they like familiarity if at all possible there. So uh, once again, I understand why people are throwing this all out there and panicking, if you will. I see them staying in pat, Alex.
Yeah, I think that's probably the more likely course right now of the names that have been suggested of outside the organization. We've heard Avery Williamson, and this is just Steeler fans speculating. This is not a concrete rumor, just for the record. But we've heard Avery Williamson of the Jets because the Jets are for sale right now. Basically, they just traded Steve McClendon right after their game to the Bucks yesterday. Hassan Reddick in Arizona, Jared Davis in Florida. Those two guys, the latter two, are former first-round picks, high pedigree guys. We know the Steelers like to go after. I think the Steelers showed interest in both guys. Definitely, I remember them showing interest in Davis, who's with Detroit right now. But overall, I do think certainly the first inclination will be to stay in-house with Spillane. But there's just a lot of unknowns there at a very important position. Spillane, very few defensive snaps. Marcus Allen, very few defensive snaps. Gilbert's gotten a hat once over the past year, basically inside a stadium to be up for a Sunday. That was last week versus the Eagles. So there's just a lot of unknowns there at a very important spot. Me personally, I would give Vince Williams the green dot, make him the three-down backer. I don't know if that's going to be their approach or not. We'll see. But either way, we both know this is a big loss for the Steelers defense.
Spillane, former undrafted free agent. For people that don't know a lot about him, was with the Tennessee Titans. A Mac product, another Mac product out of Western Michigan. There, he kind of caught my eye a couple years ago when he was with the Titans. I think he was a guy. Didn't he intercept Landry Jones? Not that that's a huge accomplishment, but he intercepted Landry Jones during a preseason game. Made a nice play on the ball and all. And once again, look, I mean, some of these guys can fall through the cracks sometimes. L.J. Fort is a perfect example of that. Heck, maybe you try. I mean, I don't think the Ravens are going to let loose of L.J. Fort right now. But could we have another L.J. Fort situation on our hands? Look, Robert Spillane's not going to go to the Pro Bowl. Okay, let's just get that out there. But I think he's serviceable enough, and I keep going back to a couple of them preseason games in last season they had with him. I like what I saw even from a coverage aspect. I think he's got a good instincts. I think he's probably a lot smarter than what people probably give him credit for there. Plays downhill well. I think he has nice click and close ability there. Obviously, it's impossible to expect a guy to come in and mono play for Devin Bush. But I think that's the way that they go first. Mix and match with Vince Williams, and like I said, Marcus Allen and UG3. Look, we'll find out real quick what they think about UG3, right? A guy that you've talked out quite a bit here during the offseason here. But
he should get a helmet.
Yeah, he should at least get a helmet here now, which something that he did not do on Sunday. I mean, here we are this many games in the season, and he's gotten a helmet once, and it was because Marcus Allen missed a game with a foot injury. Marcus Allen came back on Sunday healthy, and UG3 went back to being a helmet. So that there's some level of concern within that. For whatever it is, because this is a guy in UG3 that both of us thought, at the very least, was a sound enough special teamer. All right. Well, he'll get a chance now. He'll be dressed and helping out on special teams. So, anyway, we spent enough on this already. But if I had to make my bet, they stand pat right now, at least for the next several weeks.
Yeah, that's basically where I'm at with you. My last thought would be run defense is not going to suffer significantly. I think from a communication standpoint, I don't think it's going to suffer significantly, whether that's Spillane. I mean, you're right. He's a smart guy. They gave him the green dot, to replace Devin Bush, and things seemed to function fine. And for whatever it was worth, Spillane was the every down linebacker, including in dime packages, once Bush left the game over Vince Williams. We'll see if that sticks or not. But the concern is going to be the obvious of coverage and making plays in space, and will that be exploited the rest of the season by tight ends? If Jonnu Smith of the Titans play this weekend against Pittsburgh, that'll be one the Titans will certainly go after, test those guys in coverage, test them with running backs, and playing out in space. And so that's going to be the area that is awfully difficult to try to fill those shoes of Devin Bush.
Yeah, but hasn't that been the problem with our line with the Steelers inside linebackers to date?
Well, I thought Bush has improved dramatically in coverage. I thought he had a rougher game week 2 against Noah Fant. I don't think it was really his fault. There were some leverage issues, but after that, I thought he had shown improvement. But I think all the more there would just be sirens going off in every offensive coordinator's room from now on. 55's not out there. That's their best athlete in terms of linebackers. Let's see how these new guys fare.
All right, well, it is what it is, and I know people. Look, we'll see what happens. I'm willing to bet they stand pat.
Yeah, I think that's probably going to be their initial approach, and we'll go from there. And the trade deadline is in, what, 2 weeks, I think? So if they want to make a
end
move.
of October, right?
Yeah, if they want to make a move, it's going to have to happen pretty quickly. All right, Dave, we'll hear from Mike Tomlin tomorrow, give an update hopefully on Devin Bush, but certainly not expecting good news and not expecting Bush to be available for the rest of the season. But let's go back to some good news from yesterday's.
Real quick on that, we'll have Dr. Mel just recently wrote up an article about Zach Banner just unfortunately several weeks ago about ACL. ACLs are ACLs, right? So, there's no sense for her to write up something new on that. Just go to the site and in the search, put Banner and ACL, and you can read about the ACL injury and all like that, which we pretty sure that Bush suffered there. Now comes into question the kind of time frame with this thing moving forward with him. And, generally, the Steelers like to treat those as if they're kind of, at a minimum, 10-month injuries, I think, if you go back and look at time with them. It's still early. He hasn't even had surgery yet. That's probably going to happen, you would think, fairly quick so he can get the rehab going here on him. The Steelers right now, if things stand pat and they play in the Hall of Fame game in 2021, that would mean opening up training camp in the middle of July. And if that happens, I would expect that he'll start off training camp on active PUP, and then with maybe the hopes of being off active PUP by the start of the regular season.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think Dr. Mel said that she thinks he'll be ready for training camp, so it should be somewhere around there. So that is the once sliver of good news that this didn't happen so late in the season that'll significantly impact 2021. And then the last thing on Devin Bush is this is a young guy. I think his first serious injury. He's been a pretty durable guy, certainly in Pittsburgh, and I don't think he had any major injuries at Michigan. So he's got to deal with that mentally now too. He's going to, eventually regain trust in his knee and his movement. And I know that Ryan Shazier is kind of moving on with life's work to an extent, but hopefully Devin Bush can lean on Ryan Shazier just to deal with the mental aspect of an injury. Obviously, Shazier is much more severe than Devin Bush is, but you get the point overall. A young guy, 22, 23 years old, dealing with an injury that just totally changes what he thought was going to happen this season. So just hoping that he can get in the right place mentally to attack his rehab, because it'll be a grueling process, unfortunately, for him.
Right, but I mean, this is a hardworking kid.
Sure.
NFL pedigree, yada yada. I don't have any worry about about him bouncing back from this. I think the only thing that is called into question right now is the time frame. So having covered the Steelers as long as I have when it comes to these kind of injuries, if I were to place a bet right now, my bet would be that he starts off training camp on active PUP and then kind of being 50-50 of whether or not he'll be ready by the start of the regular season. Even if they obviously would not want to throw him on reserve PUP unless they were absolutely sure it would be another 6 weeks or so for him to be ready. So I would expect Devin Bush to be on active PUP. Hopefully, from training camp through the start of the preseason, slowly get even closer there, and maybe potentially being ready to play at the start of the 2021 season. It's right in that kind of time frame there, that 10-month kind of 10-month category there that calls into question whether or not he'll be absolutely ready to go by the start of the regular season.
Yeah, fair enough. So we'll keep you posted on what Mike Tomlin has to say about anything official later this week. Dave, let's move on to the Steelers secondary now. And after all the concern last week and wasn't sure if the sky was falling with this group or not, they come out and fix so many of their issues they had against the Eagles, third down especially. I mean, the Eagles were 10 of 14 on third down. The Browns finished yesterday 1 of 12 on third down, over 3 on fourth down. Clearly one of the starkest differences in this game. And, of course, Minkah Fitzpatrick getting his pick six on the Browns' first drive that really set the tone and gave the Steelers a double-digit lead they would never give back.
It's too bad we threw Mink out with the bathwater, right?
Mm-hmm.
Why don't you run out?
Yeah.
Why don't you run outside and go get him?
It's raining outside, so
okay.
probably could.
Look, we've told people that we're don't overreact on any of this. People don't see the plays or whatnot. The biggest concern to me, like I've said in these previous podcasts about Minkah, was the tackling. That was my biggest concern with him. Look, he hadn't made any plays. But also he hadn't been thrown at too terribly much as well too. People got a little bit spoiled with what they saw when Minkah first arrived. Okay, there, and then the second half of the season, teams obviously and noticeably stayed away from him. The more he's been, and we talked about the more he's tied to the post, the more that kind of takes away with maybe his ability. I know he'd much rather probably stay tied to the post, but you're taking away his ability to read and react and make more plays the more you're able to move him around. And they have been moving him around throughout this entire season. And it finally got to a situation where he was a robber in a cover one situation early. Baker just, for whatever reason, just didn't see him. Minkah read the eyes all the way, stepped in front, and hello, pick six, and there you go. And all everybody hold hands, kumbaya, hallelujah. The world is back in order now.
Yeah, the one point I stressed on, I think, several shows, but I think also on Friday's show, was that, they hadn't been using Minkah as this exclusive center fielder playing the deep free safety because they were scared about Edmonds or something like that. They had been actively moving him closer to the line of scrimmage this year, even more so compared to last year. And they've been playing some of that robber stuff and spinning Sutton or Hilton to the deep safety or having Terrell Edmonds play free safety. So to me, it did feel like kind of a matter of time until one of these plays finally hit, and that was the theme and breakdown of my article on the pick six this morning for Steelers Depot that you guys can check out. So just kind of a matter of time. Baker wanted the slant, never saw Minkah spin down. They did a good job to kind of disguise it pre-snap, looked like too high. They spun down right as the snap happened, and Minkah just jumped out of route and ran the other way. So nothing different than what happened in games prior. They used it basically the same way, and this time finally just a quarterback threw in his airspace, and Minkah predictably made him pay.
Yeah, and Minkah talked about what was maybe a little bit different, what was changed up this week on third downs, and he said after the game, we practiced third and medium, third and long this week in practice because we were playing poorly last week on third down, so we really wanted to emphasize that throughout the week, and we did, and we executed well this week on third down. He says went on to say we just changed up some of the schematics, decided to play a little tighter, a little bit more man-to-man, make him throw out of the pocket. I think we just executed better. I don't believe we changed a whole lot. We just executed better. And look, that's one of the things that the Steelers notoriously don't make a lot of schematic changes, right? They'll tinker with some things here and there, obviously, but they don't make wholesale changes. And they did. They played maybe a little bit tighter, a little bit more man-to-man, and did a little bit better, I thought, Alex, and we'll see what the All-22 says, disguising some things a little bit better. Even on that, I thought they did a good job of holding their water there with a cover 2 look, and I don't think Baker picked up, and I think Baker, in his mind, trying to get in a groove early in the game, had sort of a predetermined mindset of what he was going to do on that throw, and Minkah read it the whole way. One of the easier interceptions, Minkah probably kind of remind you, not as much, but kind of similar to the one against the Colts, the long pick six there. But I mean, it was a quick read for him, and he was broken down and really on top of the catch point there. Well in time. I mean, it was just pretty much a pitch and catch and take it to the house at that point here. All right. I mean, you know, uh, we didn't throw him out with the bathwater. I don't think you and I ever did. I think the biggest concern that I had with Minka throughout this thing was the horse collar penalty, on Noah Fant and bouncing off a couple of tackle attempts here, in these first several games. It's been the biggest criticism there overall. You can't expect a safety every game to have two interceptions and a forced fumble.
Sure, but it was nice for him to break that streak because that was his first takeaway by any Steelers safety, but also obviously Minka since week 10 of last season. So good to get that another drought in this running theme this year of droughts being ended. That was one of them. Yeah, he was playing the robber, or they call it the rat in the hole, and he robbed Baker and took it to the house. All right, Dave, and just the other point to mention as well on third down. I don't think they did anything dramatically different than the Eagles game. They just executed better, but that's just good coaching. I mean, you want a reflection of good coaching, places of emphasis. Third down, terrible against the Eagles. You fix it and you work on it. You put emphasis on it during the week of practice, preparing for the Browns game, and you get some really fantastic results. So kudos to Keith Butler, Mike Tomlin for identifying an obvious problem. I mean, everyone knew that it was an issue, but fixing it for the next week, because that was one of the big differences in this game.
Cam Sutton saying this morning, he's talking to the media, says Robert Spillane was wearing the defensive headset when he came in for Devin Bush yesterday. Says he expects him to continue to relay the play calls going forward.
Well, that means that he's going to be the ever down linebacker and the dimebacker, which is what he did yesterday. So they may entrust him to be the guy. I'd like to know why it's Spillane over Vince. Nothing against Spillane, but Vince has been doing this for longer. I think he's a really good processor. But if Spillane goes out there and plays well the way he did yesterday, then again, you're going to miss Devin Bush. I'm not pretending otherwise, but Spillane will be, I think, a valuable next man up.
Going to be a chance for him to look, you don't get many shots like this, right? So
sure.
Especially undrafted free agents, those types very rarely outside of especially guys that seem to kind of been buried by their first club. Very rarely get these kind of shots, and Spillane has it now. So look, once again, I kind of look at this as kind of an LJ Fort moment, if you will. We'll see how he does, but I think this now is kind of a testament or backs up kind of my thoughts there. I doubt this team does much of anything outside of maybe either they're going to add a linebacker to the practice squad, or they're going to add a linebacker to the 53. But if they whoever that player is, probably going to be young and probably going to have some special team traits that you like.
Yep, I think so. And again, even if you want to get Allen or UG3 incorporated, they could, but you take Spillane off. If you do, then who's wearing the green dot, who's calling the defense? So it may be harder for those guys to carve a path just because, there's the communication aspect of it you have to consider as well, in addition to the schematic and the athletic ability of these guys. Bless you.
Sorry.
All right. No, all good there. What else was I going to say with the secondary? The point I was going to make in relation to the secondary, since rush and cover always go together, is I thought since the second half of the Texans game, the whole Eagles game, and what I saw yesterday, the pass rush has done a great job of keeping these quarterbacks within the pocket. Baker had nowhere to go. He wasn't able to scramble. Not that he probably really wanted to because of the rib injury, but just overall against Watson in the second half, Wentz in the Eagles game, and then Baker yesterday. The pass rush is doing a great job of getting home, of course, but also constricting the pocket and not creating, obvious escape lanes for the quarterback, which is only helping out the coverage all the more.
And that's one of the things that we talked about heading into this thing, worried about. Really, we've talked about it several times with a few of these quarterbacks the Steelers have faced. And again, with Baker this week is those that kind of have those design design rollouts, sprint outs to either side, and ability to make throws and move the pocket, if you will, because a lot of it sets up a lot of that high-low stuff that makes it easier for young quarterbacks to make reads. And whenever you get in a situation where you kind of take that away and you make some of these younger quarterbacks stay in the pocket and have to deal with that, and you used the right word, constrictor kind of pass rush. That takes a lot of guts to stand in there with that and take those kind of hits that those guys take from this defense. And make no mistake, this defense had 5 sacks yesterday. How many more could they have had, Alex?
Yeah, I think 4 officially. The one was the Cam Sutton, which is the easiest sack in the world he got, with Baker just running out of bounds, and Sutton got credit for it. But yeah, they got 24 through 5 games. They're still on pace for 76. They lead the NFL in sacks out right now over the Rams. And yeah, they could have had a bunch more. Cam missed one. I mean, he certainly had an opportunity to get Baker on the ground. And so that pass rush, again, was overall relentless, but with a lot of rush lane integrity, which also allows you to play more man coverage. When you feel like you have that rush lane integrity and the quarterback's not going to escape and scramble, you're probably a little more comfortable and confident in playing man coverage, which of course is the Steelers' strength defensively.
Right. And what did you see with the fronts, with the over fronts?
Yeah, I'll probably do a video on that because I've talked about it before, but it is, to me, one of the secret weapons for this defense. You look at some of these 4th down plays or some of these, situations where offenses want to go with, multiple tight ends or 22 personnel with a fullback in the game, like the Browns like to use with Andy Janovich. And so the Steelers will play often TJ Watt off ball, and they'll shift the front to the strength of the formation and get Cam Hayward or Tua on a defensive end, or on a tight end, I should say, and just go to work. And you got Watt shooting the A gap. You got Hayward on a tight end, winning the point of attack, winning the line of scrimmage, and that front was very successful against the Browns. So just another wrinkle, another tool in the toolbox to get a good matchup and to let those guys make plays and win the line of scrimmage. And just cannot say enough about this run defense. It was as good as I've seen it yesterday.
And boy, when you get a team down like that, you make a great front greater when you get up on teams like the Steelers did, when those guys can just pin their, and that's why some of those big, those occasional late runs will happen. They said, the heck with setting the edge. I'm going to get me another sack. And I think you saw that specifically with Bud Dupree later in the game. Look, it's a little bit more forgivable when you're up 20-something points in a game, late in the game, to maybe go stat chasing, if you will, in those aspects there. But you want to talk about making a great defense greater, give them a lead like that and let them be able to pin their ears back. And I think one of the things that even stood out on the tape, Alex, on the TV tape in the second half of yesterday's game, man, those guys get off the ball so quick. And TJ Watt's a given. Bud's get off obviously hasn't been bad for a while now, but even those interior guys, Tuitt, Alualu, Cam Hayward, here we are still right now moving into week 7, and Cam Hayward might be the weakest link on your defensive line, and I say that respectively. I'm not. It's not a slight at him whatsoever here. It's just that's how good some of these guys have been playing. And like I said, Tuitt, the fact that he sticks out on the TV tape for a defensive lineman right now should bring some Easter eggs, if we will, on the all 22 tape. And I think that's one of the things of going through that TV tape the second half of that game yesterday was just how quick these guys are getting off the ball up front.
I mean, I could talk about this front alone for hours, and we're already, I think, an hour into the show. I just can't even get the thoughts out quickly enough. This might be a really hot take I'm going to hit you with, but it probably shouldn't be. I mean, as good as TJ Watt is, and he's amazing, he's a defensive MVP candidate, Stephon Tuitt might be the best defender on the Steelers defense. Just when everyone's healthy, everyone's good to go. I mean, he is just ridiculous. The feet, the hands, the hips, the finish. This front as a whole is just consistent down to down. I mean, there was the 4th and 1 or 4th and 2. The Steelers stuffed Cleveland on. It was 31-7, 38-7. The game is over. Over, over at that point, and they're still playing hard. They're still getting the stop. This front is just phenomenal.
Boy, you go back and look at that play specifically. Him firing off low man wins. Him and I think Alo single-handedly blew that play up. There. Look, we'll see what kind of. Sometimes you need a name recognition, and obviously with Tuitt and having kind of not being able to finish. He's played when he's healthy. He plays well. The obvious thing there is he's had some seasons wrecked by some injuries there. Now you wonder if he's got enough of that name recognition now because of some of those guys that he plays with. If he's having an All-Pro season, I don't think there's any two ways about it, right?
Right. And then Hayward is still, to me, having an all-pro season, even though the stats are a little bit light, although he led the team in tackles yesterday with 8. So when you're 3 techs leading the team with tackles, you're probably having a pretty good day overall. And him and Tuitt, to steal your phrase here, Dave, they wore Chris Hubbard like a hat. I mean, Chris Hubbard just had no shot. They lost Wyatt Teller, their star guard. Hubbard, trying to fill in at right guard, and I mean, there were a couple of times where Hayward and Tuitt were just both bench pressing Hubbard, just pushing him back, shedding the block, and making the play. And I'm sure there'll probably be some good ribbing about that one after the game.
And the Browns went out and spent all that money on that right tackle, and who, Conklin?
Yep, Jack Conklin.
And he was having to tackle T.J. Watt a couple of times during that game. I think one got called, and I don't think 2 others did. That's how dangerous a guy like Watt is, and Conklin's no joke at all. But they just all we heard about going into this game is the Browns offensive line, to spend all that money on defensive line and draft picks and all like that. Now obviously not having Teller at right guard hurt, but next man up,
Right.
And
Steelers were without the Castro. They made it work.
Right. And they put on an exhibition against that front on Sunday at Heinz Field. So, yep. I mean, we've talked about the front. We haven't hardly talked about really the off the ball. We obviously talked about Spillane and all like that, and the secondary too, man. Rushing coverage hand in hand. Joe Hayden, I thought, played a good game overall. I thought Edmonds had another respectable showing there especially on a pass breakup. I think it was on a 3rd down too to Njoku, right? Yep. Kind of a click and close situation there. Got that ball out kind of last minute there. I thought Edmonds made another noticeable play throughout the game there. Minka, it goes without saying with his what his pick 6 in the game meant early. And I thought Joe Hayden Joe Hayden almost had another interception over there on the side, and one in the end zone was. He had no choice but to look. If you're going to get beat like that, make sure the guy don't score on you.
Right. And it was only illegal contact, so it was only a 5-yard yardage on that play. And yeah, the secondary did a much better job plastering, even in zone coverage when the play occasionally got extended. They found their man, they stuck to him. So the defense did a much better job at the catch point, plastering, competing, and just a night and day difference from last week against the Eagles.
Absolutely, and I don't know what else we can say about this defense now at this point. I mean, what a 3rd down turnaround,
Mm-hmm.
to go from what look, they were 50% on 3rd down going in to that game. That number will obviously come down. I mean, to get an offense like the Browns to go 1 of 12, and to do to some of the things that they did. Defensively, and look, not only that, you might as well go ahead and lump in those 4th downs. I know it's a separate statistic there, and I mean for all practical matters, it's one of 15 on money downs.
Really, really good stuff. And just quick final note with the injury-related stuff. Mike Hilton suffered a shoulder injury trying to tackle Kareem Hunt, who's certainly a load to bring down. Don't know his status. He did not finish the game, so Cam Sutton moved to the slot, and Justin Layne got his first defensive snaps in dime. He played 6 or 7 snaps, and I don't think he was targeted once, but he got his first NFL defensive snap, so kudos to him for that.
That answers our question between him and Pierre, right?
Right, I hadn't even thought of that, yeah. So Layne getting the work at right cornerback. And they were kicking Nelson to the slot mostly, and having Sutton still as a kind of the dime backer with Nelson playing the slot, which is what he did early in his days at Kansas City. So that's kind of how they rearranged the deck.
You just hope now that boy, poor Mike Hilton, he was hurt. He took a wallop on it. I mean, that should have been obviously a TFL, but I think it was left shoulder, right?
Yeah, left
Correct?
shoulder.
On that, and he was hurting there. Obviously, having a very good season and a ferocious run defender in the slot as well too there. So we'll see what Mike Tomlin has to say. Look, we got us a small little surprise last week. We thought that's why you got to be careful with these injury lists. We thought Deontay Johnson sure looked at maybe at the start of the week based on what Tomlin had said that maybe he'd be good to go by game time. Lo and behold, we got to Friday and Deontay Johnson was ruled out there. So, I hate to use the cop out day to day, but that's exactly what it is when trying to read the tea leaves when it comes to the Steelers injury report there. Pouncey left late again with a foot injury. At one time, you can see, I think Ben Roethlisberger pretty much kicked Pouncey out of the game at that point. If you go back and look after that one play, I think Roethlisberger mouthed to Pounce, get off or something like that after that. And J.C. Hassenauer came in once again. Has had a few nice reps, although the fire and brimstone had been taken out of whatever was left at the Browns defense at that time there. So obviously, look, this is becoming a thing with Pouncey in the foot. Those things don't magically get better in a short week's time here, so maybe it's worth watching that. Of course, the team hopefully had Stefan Wisniewski working his way back as of next week. You'd have to think another week there, maybe he's getting close. I don't know. Could we have a week coming up here where Pouncey gets a much-needed week off? I think it's possible.
Would have been nice to have a bye week in week 7.
Yeah, but what are you going to do, right?
I know. I'm just saying. I'm being a grumpy Steeler fan over here. All right, speaking of Pouncey, let's talk about this offense because they put up 31 points. It didn't really feel like a 31-point performance. It was not the best performance maybe in the world, but, man, it was certainly good enough to get the job done. And, Dave, as we mentioned, the Steelers just won the trenches. That included the Steelers' offensive line, which I thought they did an overall great job. James Conner, to me, that was James Conner's best performance of the season. Statistically, it was similar to some of the other games he's had, but in terms of creating, running hard, finishing his plays, and just making people miss, I thought Conner was excellent. And so Ben didn't have to do much. Again, kind of compared it to a early day Bill Cowher handed off to the Bush 20 times in the second half type of game, but made his plays downfield once they adjusted to the Browns playing very aggressive, tight coverage. And again, the run game was really good with James Conner leading the way.
I thought from what I saw on tape that maybe they could run on that Browns defense. And I envisioned about 125 yards or so, I think, for Conner on the ground, maybe about 140 or so for as a team. They came pretty close to those numbers. Conner 20 carries, 101 yards, 1 touchdown, a long of 14. That 14-yard run, I think, kind of was a catalyst. Wasn't that the catalyst over to the right side of that long TD scoring possession there in the second half? I believe that's when that one came from. But here's the stat that matters, if you will. James Conner had 20 carries, 14 of them were successful runs. 70% with the little googly eyeballs next to them emoji there. That's significant. If you ask me, 14 of 20 carries, successful runs. I don't give a living, yet 5 yards per carry. I could care less about that. You give me that 70% successful run rate. I don't care what the kid's averaging yards per carry at that point there. Benny Snell, got him a little bit of work, had his touchdown run in there as well too. I think that you're starting to see the magic of this motion take hold on some of these defenses here, and especially when Claypool was the motion man, it seems like they have had enough success now with this that I think teams are starting to look out of the corner of their eye, if you will, and That's helping out a little bit here. What is Ben Roth? Before I hand it to you, here's a Yinzer nerd alert. Steelers had 14. I already charted this. I couldn't wait. 14 offensive plays with motion at the snap, true motion at the snap, and one was wiped out by a penalty. So 13 or 14. Let's see, had 14. And one of those was wiped out by a penalty. All 14 were runs. We didn't get to see any passes off there like Dave hoped to see. 9 of the 13 that stood were successful runs.
And what's the percentage on that? It's very high.
Good.
I know that. Yeah. It's 69%, so we'll call it nice. A very nice percentage for this motion. Yeah, it's been effective. Chase Claypool, another touchdown. He's got 2 of them already rushing this season. This has become a ball control offense. It's been 3 straight games they've had the ball for 34 plus minutes. So that's keeping their defense rested, obviously keeping the opposing offense off the field, and means they're converting on third down. They weren't spectacular yesterday, but they were good enough. And yeah, just overall a very ball control, win in the trenches, kind of wear that Cleveland front down in the second half. And James Conner goes over for 100 yards. The O-line overall was excellent as run blockers. Dotson, Okorafor, Pouncey, Filer is a very good run blocker. And then Villanueva and pass pro. Myles Garrett did have 1 sack, but that came on the right side on a stunt splitting Okorafor and Dotson. But Villanueva did not allow a sack yesterday, so his hot streak continues. And so they didn't have to throw the ball a lot, but they were very clean. They took care of the football. There were no turnovers again for this offense. So they've had just 1 in 3 games, which is a fantastic number. They were 3 for 3 in the red zone, so they finished their drives. And yeah, they just were the more physical team yesterday, both on offense and on defense.
Oh, Villanueva sucks.
Yeah, it's honestly, he's kind of gotten to the point where he's probably the most underrated Steeler just because of so much criticism he gets that's generally not earned.
True or false, Alejandro Villanueva was the best offensive lineman the Steelers had yesterday?
It's so tough to grade these off the TV tape live, but I'll say true just because I know he did not allow a sack, and I don't know how he did as a run blocker, but he was very good yesterday.
I will go with you. The answer is true. He was the Steelers' best offensive lineman in that game.
No sacks in 5 games. I mean, that's for your left tackle. That's really good.
So where does the narrative come in at? Is it all stemming off of one game against the Browns? Is that where the narrative has been set and people don't want to budge from it?
I mean, Garrett's definitely had success against Villanueva in the past, so I think that's partially where it comes from. It's not totally out of thin air, but Garrett's a great player, and I know he played on the right side a good bit yesterday. They move him around. He saw Okorafor several times, so I don't want to pretend like Villanueva shut him down the entire game. He did not see him the entire game, but yeah, just playing offensive line. If you have a couple of bad snaps out of 80, the bad ones get remembered. It's like playing goalie. You give up 3 goals on 25 shots. You didn't have a great day, although you statistically stopped most of the shots.
All right, explain Ben Roethlisberger spacing pounce.
What? I don't. What's the reference?
Several times during the game, Ben Roethlisberger's telling Pouncey spacing pre-snap.
I don't know. I don't think I picked up on that. So you probably have some more information than I do on that.
All right. I mean, it's worth looking into. When you go back through the TV tape the next time, you'll pick up on it.
Okay. Yeah, but just overall, this offense, again, with a passing game, I mean, the RPOs were not working early. Ben was 0 for 3 on RPOs, and the Browns were definitely playing tight. They were playing press man coverage. You couldn't throw slants on them, and so Pittsburgh smartly adjusted and went over the top with Chase Claypool, a big reception down the left sideline, a beautifully called and timed double move to James Washington on the right side for an easy 28-yard score. After the game, Ben said Dobbs helped suggest that one, so give Dobbs the assist for suggesting that play that set up Washington's score. So really nothing mystical or fanciful about it, but very effective, very efficient, and a good day for the offense.
Absolutely, and you talk about the left or the right side of that offensive line. Run blocking wise, probably not the best overall. I think Dotson outside of that once him and Okorafor except for that one stunt that they didn't handle. We're good in pass protection there. I thought if anything, those two need to improve a little bit on their run blocking there on that side there overall. But I mean, look, anytime you go again, that's not a bad front, obviously, when Myles Garrett is as much of a monster as he's been this year. And I only saw you just mentioned. I tried to pay attention to where Garrett lined up most of the time, and it did seem like he lined up on the left side, on the left side of the Browns defense, looking at the back of him most of the time, which means against a core four on that side. Did you see him line up at all on the other side?
I'm sure he did. The visions I have right now are coming against the core four, including the sack, so we'll have to go back and look at that a little bit closer. So I'm sure that Garrett lined up against Villanueva some. I don't know what the percentage is. It may have been more on a core four side. I don't know. I couldn't tell you right now, but either way, I know that both sacks really came on the right side, not against Villanueva, so still a shutout performance for him.
Once again, we saw Dotson on the move. That gets me excited when that happens. What else?
Including on the touchdown, too, right? The Connor touchdown. Pistol, get downhill, power. That is some very old-school type football.
Love it. And on the Claypool touchdown, Jalen Samuels. Shout out to Jalen Samuels out there doing some work on the edge.
Yeah, I made a crack at him on that because I had run the quarterback sneak to play before with Ben. I'm like, why is Jalen Samuels out there? Is Derek Watt okay, by the way? He wasn't out there, and usually that's Derek Watt's spot. Do we see him late in that game at all, by any chance?
I don't think we did. I think, and he didn't play many snaps early. So we saw him on a counter early.
Right.
I think most notably on a counter early going on a counter to the right there. I don't know how much more we saw him. I think he played, 4 snaps in total, right? Correct?
Is that it? So I just want to make sure he's okay because it was weird to see Samuels out there, but Samuels threw a good enough block on the perimeter for Claypool to get in, and someone made the joke that Claypool is this team's short yardage back, which is kind of getting true at this point.
Of what?
That Chase Claypool is the short yardage back for the Pittsburgh Steelers with the way they're using him around the goal line.
Look, I think all that stuff's starting to add up now, though, right? You know, the way they use him, and we already recapped the motion, the motion numbers that they've used him quite a bit in those situations there. That I think when you get in red zone situations, if we've learned anything now in these first games five Steelers games, Chase Claypool will be on the field in red zones, especially goal-to-goal situations. Plain and simple.
Right.
It's probably not rocket science or heart or rocket surgery when it comes to that. But his mere presence now, because of what they've done with running him on in those situations and handing the ball off, automatically makes defenses wonder. Now you can build so much stuff off of that now. That there should be, if you're within the 5-yard line now, there is no excuse as long as Chase Claypool is healthy. There's no excuse for this team not to come away with a red zone touchdown if they're 5 yards and in right now.
Yeah, I mean, he's 6'4", 230, and if he's getting full speed ahead around the 3-yard line on the perimeter, he's getting in the end zone. I mean, he's just a big guy that's going to run you over. I do want to just caution on him extending the ball over the goal line a couple times. I know he's a lengthy dude and he wants to get in the end zone, but I'm a little worried about just ball security at the goal line. I mean, sometimes you want to stretch it over, but most times you probably just want to make sure you're taking care of the football so it doesn't have that fumble out of the end zone touchback worst case scenario.
Isn't that in Bill Belichick's world?
Yep.
Isn't that a no-no?
Belichick says only times you do it is basically 4th down or to win the game. I think there's very isolated scenarios where he gives you the green light to do that because the priority is ball security. So a minor nitpick thing, and I understand why he's doing it, but just something maybe to think about.
So you want to throw Claypool out with the bathwater,
I do.
right?
Him and Minka on the street. By the way, some Steelers trivia for you. Benny Snell, James Conner, Chase Claypool all had rushing touchdowns Sunday. Do you know the last time the Steelers had 3 different players who had a rushing touchdown in a game, Dave? It's in my stats of the weird for those who have.
I missed it. No, I want to take a guess, and I know it's probably not. I want to say it was a game against the Eagles, maybe with Hines Ward with one of them.
No, good guess. So maybe that was, but 2011, the last time it happened against the Rams, a 27-0 win. It was Isaac Redman, Rashard Mendenhall, and John Clay, everyone's favorite John Clay, had rushing touchdowns in that game. So a lot of guys touching the football, a lot of guys spotting the end zone.
Let's see, offensively, Ben Roethlisberger. What did you think about other than those? They caught a couple breaks early. That first RPO pass probably should have been intercepted. And
Yep.
then one of those quick hitters over to Ray McLeod probably should have ended up in the end zone.
Yeah, it was actually a good thing it was batted down, because had it not been, it's almost certainly picked off.
Right. Obviously, I don't know what Ben saw in a couple of those that made him want to throw that.
Hmm.
It didn't look like the conflict player was conflicted. you
Right.
know, on those. I don't know if it was predetermined or what on those kind of things there, but even though it was RPO, but not the best decision when it comes to that. I think look, I think the Browns identified themselves real quick scheme wise though, that they were wanting to play a lot of man in that game,
Hmm.
and the Steelers, kind of adjusted to that. Said, okay, we'll try to get this running game going on top of it. It didn't feel like Ben had to do too terribly much in this game. Now, 6 attempts more than 15 yards down the field, completed 3 of them, but the 3 that he did complete down the field were the 3 that he threw over 20 yards. So go figure. So 50% with his 50% coming on the ones further down the field. They're beautiful ball to chase Claypool down this side, kind of off of I don't know, slot fade. We've seen Juju run that how many times?
Hmm. Yeah.
And be successful with that. Once again, I thought Claypool did a good job of separating with the football in the air. Split second there, though, I thought that was long. I thought no way he was going to get that, but he brought it down. That was a catalyst kind of play there. And then one of the other ones there in that game that Ben talked about after the game, kind of Josh Dobbs being responsible for, and it shouldn't take too many trips to the all-22 to pick up the setup on that one. Kind of the double move by James Washington but I love those wide open touchdowns. I can't get enough of those. I bet Ben Roethlisberger can't either. But the double move, that patented Ben Roethlisberger pump fake there,
So
and
good.
I mean, everybody bites on that. Easy pitch and catch touchdown.
Yeah, they run those double moves every single game, and usually defenses are smart enough not to bite. But the Browns, again, playing aggressive, trying to jump some of those quick out routes and slants, and they finally got him. And what was the third one over 20 plus? And Washington, Claypool? I don't remember the third one.
Yeah, you do early in the game. The Washington, it almost looked like maybe a back shoulder
Oh,
throw, but
yeah.
they maybe
Great
got
catch by Washington.
great catch by Washington down the left sideline there. So I don't know if that was intended to be back shoulder. Maybe it got away, but regardless, it was great. It was a great adjustment by Washington either way. Washington's that guy that people, Claypool does what he does, and then a couple, Juju has a couple times. People say, well, what, sit Washington back down, then you have Washington have a game like he had. Not stellar. People aren't going. He's not going to win AFC Offensive Player of the Week, but yeah, give me those kind of games from James Washington every week. I'll take them.
Yep, when his number is called upon, he's reliable, and that's all you can ask for out of a guy. Chase Claypool has tied the Steelers' record for any player, not just any rookie, but any player, for most touchdowns through the first 5 games of the season. Claypool now has 6. That's tied with Jerome Bettis, Louis Lips, and LB Nichols. So some very good company to be a part of.
Absolutely, and I mean, this kid's earning his playing time, that's for sure. And he led all Steelers receivers in offensive snaps against the Browns. Now, look, going to be interesting to see what the usage rate is when Deontay Johnson gets healthy. But I'll tell you what Claypool has done in these first 5 games. I don't know what you do defensively, and you pretty much got to pick your poison on what you got to do, And I know Juju's not lighting up the stat sheet. At least he's got a great attitude about it. I don't think it's anything that I don't think it's any undoing. Look, Ben's just able to spread the football around,
Right.
And
Exactly.
that's what Ben's doing. I mean, let's not forget another big play in that game, which is kind of a meh kind of call, if you will. That That was a big third down throw, a nice ball placement, a nice route, nice catch by Eric Ebron on what should have probably been a third down conversion. And I don't know why they called that, Ebron. I sort of get it, but I think it's kind of a ticky-tack call, if you will. But Ben's not forcing any footballs right now, other than that early RPO, which he got away with. I thought, and really maybe even the second RPO maybe he forced as well too. But other than that, he's able to just sit back and take what the defense is giving him. He's picking his shots down the field. It was good to see a 50. What are we talking about? 50% deep ball rate, right? Obviously more than 45 or so is what you shoot for. He did that. They got a one touchdown off of it. Almost had a second touchdown off of it that way as well too. Those are the deep ball rates that you want to see. Look, you don't want to have 6 times in a game going deep and you win a ball game. There's nothing wrong with that, especially if you're connecting on 3 of those. But I think my biggest takeaway with the play of Ben Roethlisberger right now through these games is he's not forcing the football and getting nice high completion percentages. We saw his intended air yards jump up a little bit. We talked about there being a gap between Roethlisberger's intended air yards and his completed air yards and how both numbers were kind of low. Well, against the Browns, I think it was 8 was his intended air yards and 7 was his completed air yard distance. Nothing wrong with that.
Nope, nothing at all. Let me give you Ben's stats through the first 3 games of the season. He's completing 69% of his passes, 11 touchdowns, 1 interception, and his team's 5-0. I mean, you just couldn't ask for a better start with Ben in this offense.
Well, you don't turn the football over,
It's hard to lose.
It's really is hard to lose when you don't turn the football over there. And with him, let's see, believe it or not, even though lack of kind of overall deep shots, if you will, yards per attempt for Roethlisberger right now, very respectable 7.1. It doesn't feel like it, does it?
It's on the low end for him, but I think the number will come up as they continue to work on the deep ball. And I think it came up yesterday, so I think it'll normalize in that 7.5 range by season's end.
Here's the money stat. His adjusted net yards per passing attempt stat is 7.37. There, give me 7 or north of 7 any day. Give me 6.8 or north any day of the week. Anything over 7 for an NFL quarterback right now through this many games played, I'll absolutely take it.
Do we know where that ranks league-wide? Do we have a league-wide number on that stat? Just to put it in context, I don't know if that's accessible or not.
Let's do it. Let's do it. Ask me that on Wednesday.
Okay, good deal. All right, Dave, so I think that covers the offense pretty well. Very clean, efficient game. Special teams, I think more of the same. Nothing too major, but we're not talking about any breakdowns either. Boswell was solid. Colquitt's not great, but I guess it's good enough to get the job done. And Jordan Dangerfield, I thought, had a heck of a day on special teams. I believe at least 2 tackles covering kicks and punts.
Guy won't go away, will he?
He gets no respect, but yeah, he's a tone setter. He's an energy dude. He's physical, reliable tackler, and glad to have him on the team.
Is there anything offensively that you're not seeing this team do that you'd like to see them do?
The biggest thing left was really the deep ball, and they certainly were much better at that Sunday against Cleveland. So you want to continue to see that. 1 week is not a trend. You want to see multiple weeks of that success continuing. But other than that, I mean, they're running the ball well. They're closing out games. They're possessing the football. They're not turning it over. They're protecting Ben. They're getting some big plays. There's so many weapons on this offense. I mean, there are some minor things, of course, you could nitpick, but overall, very happy with this group.
I think really other than maybe, liking to see maybe an explosive run, a game, which they did get one a couple games ago, obviously, with McLeod and that, those kind of things obviously are gifts anytime you get an explosive run. But on top of it, the only thing really we haven't seen this offense do is a passing game off of pre-snap motion at snap of the football. That's really it, and that's going to come. You can't have the kind of success that they're having, increased success almost by the week with running the football at the snap or would motion to snap at a football and not pick up some sort of benefit of it as the season goes by with some sort of play action, wheel, or something. It's coming. I thought we would see it against the Browns. We didn't. It's coming, though.
Yeah, you probably would have seen it had the game been close and competitive. I mean, how many times did they throw in the second half? 5 or 6, and Mason Rudolph got in the game and threw a pass. So nice to see Mason get in there and complete a pass this season.
Yeah, I love those kneel downs, don't you?
And I think Dotson and Hawkins did a better job on the kneel down blocks too. I was taking a close look at that one, so kudos to them. All right, Dave. I think that's everything from the Steelers game, recapping that one. Before we get to some reader emails, let's talk about our friends over at MyBookie.
Absolutely. Between the NFL, college ball, and MLB playoffs, there's no shortage of games to watch. And with thousands of lines available on all your favorite sports and events, you can turn your game day into payday with MyBookie. If you're the type of guy or girl who likes to back the big favorites, consider putting a couple in on a parlay for a much bigger payout. Not only do parlays make meaningless games exciting, but more importantly, they give you a chance to turn ordinary bets into a real moneymaker. And don't forget the underdogs. They have a ton of value. The thing about the NFL is that underdogs are never really dogs on Sunday. Every team truly has a chance to win, and you do too. Game spreads, championship futures, and player prop bets. It's never too late to get in on the action and start turning your sports knowledge into actual cash in your wallet. Sign up at MyBookie now, and when you do, use our promo code TERRIBLE. That's terrible to claim a deposit match dollar for dollar all the way up to $1,000. It's a bonus designed to give you a little help and a head start on your winning season. That's promo code TERRIBLE for you to claim your bonus when you make your deposit. Stacked UFC cards, presidential prop bets, all major sports, and more. Sign up today at mybookie.ag to begin your winning season exclusively at MyBookie.
Dave, short AFC North roundup. The Ravens held off the Eagles' comeback, and the Bengals bungled things to blow a 21-0 lead against the Colts. The Steelers are still your AFC North leaders at 5-0, Baltimore 5-1, Cleveland 4-2, and the Bengals are 4-1. Do I have that right?
I believe so. Yep.
All right, so that is your AFC North roundup, and again, the Steelers will play the Titans on Sunday. The matchup of two undefeated teams, both 5-0.
And the Bengals will host the Browns, I think. So that's and then the Ravens, I believe, are on their bye, so they get the nice little rest there before playing the Steelers there, which obviously will still aggravates a lot of people, I'm sure. But all right, feels like we've covered a lot already.
Let's get to some reader emails and close out today's show.
And let's see, just got confirmation from David Beauclair. We will have the great David Beauclair back on again to talk about the Titans on Wednesday. Alex, that'll be at, we'll do him mid-afternoon, so I don't know if we'll have that on the Wednesday podcast or not. Maybe tuck it in. Maybe we'll wait a little bit longer on Wednesday to release that show. I don't know, but at least we got confirmation that we'll have the great David Beauclair back on to help us preview the Titans. All right, here we go to the email machine. Aquelas Sosa, it sounds like. Good morning, gents. I'm Aquelas Sosa. I'm from Houston, Texas, currently located at MI in the UP. What does that mean?
MI in the UP? I'm not quite sure.
I don't know what that means. It's been more than 4 years hearing you guys. Thank you for your work. I appreciate all the inside information. On Bush's injury, a non-contact one, can't help but to think that maybe he was overworked. Is that a possibility for the ACL to get overworked? I guess this question should be directed to Melanie. But your opinion on the matter will suffice to me. I know that Mike T's approach towards young talent is to not give them as much rest as the veteran players. Do you think that he need to change that approach? Thank you, and keep it up. My first inclination is no. It's just one of them freak things, and I bet Dr. Mel, and we'll have her on here for too much longer. I bet Dr. Mel will say the same thing, that it's just one of those freak things that look, players play all the snaps all the time, and especially young players. That's what they're drafted to do. I don't think being overworked led to this ACL injury, but I'm not a doctor. I only play one on a podcast.
Yeah, I don't have data on that kind of stuff. I don't know what they were getting in terms of practice information. Sometimes those things can gauge, not that they can gauge an ACL tear, but just general wear and tear on a body. But I'm with you, Dave. I think that's just a freak thing that you really just can't control. It's part of football. It sucks. It especially sucks to happen to Devin Bush. It sucks to happen to anybody, but really nothing you can do about it. And I typed in MIUP, and they say that Google tells me it's the Upper Peninsula of Michigan. So maybe that's where he's at.
Let's see. He says he's from Houston, Texas, currently
All
located
right.
at MINDUP. Okay.
So mystery solved, potentially.
All right. The Google machine wins. Rob Jones writes in, opining on 2021 based on 5-game sample size. All right. Put your thinking cap on, Alex. Recognizing it's only a five game sample size, but would we be better off to wish on re-signing Connor and Filer or Hilton and let Juju walk? Deontay Washington Claypool look like capable core. 2021 Steeler first-round draft pick. Pat Freiermuth would help as well. You guys rock. Rob, here's the thing. Wishing on re-signing Connor and Filer or Hilton and let Juju walk. None of them are interrelated really, because you're probably a good chance all of them are going to be gone. So just letting Juju walk is not potentially enough to save the other three. Obviously, and a lot would really happen to save any of those guys right now, in my opinion. I think Alex is right in the assumption of all the guys that you mentioned there, Connor, Filer, Hilton, and Juju. The most plausible one returning would probably be Juju, but they would have a lot of work to do to be able to accommodate such a thing, and such a thing would have to happen probably even before he got a franchise tag.
Right. It'll be interesting to potentially gauge Juju's value because he's having a good season. He's not having a bad season, but obviously the numbers don't appear like they're going to be as gaudy as maybe I thought they could be. I think again, there'll be ebb and flow. He'll have his games, but obviously he's going to be capped because of all the talent in this on this team. So don't know how that's going to affect his value. Overall, though, it's something I don't think about a whole lot right now, just because we're so in the middle of the season and so much can change, an injury, performance, whatever the case can be, that I really don't spend a whole lot of time thinking about free agency stuff until this season concludes.
I mean, we'll talk about it, but I mean, I think it's way out there right now to look. We've talked about that a lot, Rob, and we'll obviously see what happens there. They're going to be hard pressed to bring back any of those guys that you mentioned there because of the salary cap situation there. Seth Bergstein writes in, good morning, happy Victory Monday, gentlemen. Acknowledging that this may be a real reach, but do you think it's within the realm of possibility that the staff considering Edmonds to fill in at Mac with Sutton or Dangerfield taking over at strong safety? Of all the scenarios I play out in my mind, this seems to pose the least risk, but I know it's unconventional to just move players' position around like that. I'm rooting for UG3, but given that he's barely made it on the field, it makes me think the staff isn't as high as him as I may be. Thoughts? Seth, look, I think you're overthinking this, brother. I think a lot of people listening to this are overthinking it. I think Uncle Dave's got the best beat on this. I think it's going to be Spillane. For most of it until he proves that unless he proves otherwise, and I think maybe a pinch of maybe some UG3 or some Marcus Allen in there a little bit, but I think everybody's overthinking this a little bit too much.
Yeah, I mean, I the thoughts crossed my mind. I've had some questions about that. I could definitely see the use in that, but again, it goes back to, okay, who's wearing the green dots? Blaine comes off the field, Davis comes in, Edmonds spins down. Who's wearing the green dot? How does that work from a logistics standpoint? Switching helmets. I mean, some of that seems like that could be an issue. So if Blaine's going to wear the green dot, and it sounds like he is, then he's probably going to be your every down linebacker, and until he struggles in that role, we'll probably keep him in that role and go from there.
All right, this one from Tilo, is it Tilo or Tilo? 4-letter word, Tilo. You guys got to send me, even for 4-letter words, you got to send me pronunciation guides. All right. Hi, Dave and Alex. Thank you for the tremendous work. I enjoy a lot hearing your podcast, number one in the business. David, tell your wife that you're known here over in Germany. as well as she is. Okay. Let me first clarify something. And as heard on a game broadcast since last Friday, hearing your podcast, I was looking for the Minka is bad bandwagon. Thanks to Baker Mayfield, he found it Sunday. But to be really honest, I think you were really critical of Minka, and I didn't agree every time, but never ever were you throwing him out the window. Absolutely, I wasn't. I was critical mostly of his tackling. Now I have really quick question. A couple of times Cleveland receivers seem to be really open, 2 times on the left side and the other on the right side with the touchdown. Mayfield managed to find him. Do you think this is a point where we should worry about the secondary? So Reddy said the grade. Wait, he must have a little bit of broken English here. So Reddy said keep the grade word up. I'm looking forward to your answers and keep up the great work. And maybe writing. He'll be writing again soon. All right, thanks. Love hearing from new people, especially our overseas people here. Once again, I'm not worried about secondary.
Yeah, I mean, those were some of the blemishes. The 30-yard run to the catch to the tight end left side and the touchdown by Higgins. I mean, that was dropping 8 in the coverage. No way anyone should get that open when you drop 8. I don't know. You play some spot drop zone. They kind of flood it, looked like, and Hilton probably bit a little bit as well. So they were blemishes for sure, and you want to see that stuff get cleaned up and improved upon. But overall, again, big difference night and day from the Eagles game to the Browns game. It allows 7 points total. Thought overall the secondary and this whole defense played really well. So you could criticize that. That's fair, but I'm not worried about it. Big picture.
Yeah, look, I mean, we've seen how good this defense can be. There's, is it a little bit concerning? You've had a couple of busted coverages there inside the red zone. Yeah. Wasn't that one yesterday to Higgins? Wasn't that on a little bit of an extended play?
Yeah, I don't know if I would classify that as even as miscommunication. If I thought it was miscommunication, I'd be a little more concerned because
someone came off of somebody is what happened.
Yeah, Hilton has like curl flat. He kind of bit inside because Baker looked inside and Higgins was open to the right, but they kind of flooded the zone. And I don't know. I mean, it was obviously not a good result to have a guy that open when you drop 8. But it's hard for me to say that was like clear miscommunication because I'm not sure if it was. I mean, that has been an issue with this defense, but I thought overall communication was, on first glance at least, better than where it's been.
We'll see what the all 22 has to say. Maybe by tonight we'll talk about it on the YouTube live session.
Mm-hmm.
JJ from Lexington writes in, I believe that's our first complete game in a long time. Who gets your game balls? My big question after losing Bush, do you think any of the veteran linebackers that are free agents are worthy of rostering? He has examples, Darren Lee, Michael Kendricks, Woodyard, and Ogletree seem to be top names out there. Thanks for all your work you do covering a team we love. Once again, I think people are overthinking this thing, at least out of the chute here with the veteran linebackers and as far as they go. Is it out of the question? I guess no, not really. I think we've already seen within just 12 hours here, the confidence that they have in Spillane, the whole next man up aspect of it. I'll be surprised if it's a name either traded for or brought in via free agency. With that, who gets our game balls?
I mean, just that whole front 7. I mean, Cam, Tuitt, Dupree had 2 sacks. I don't know if we even mentioned Dupree having 2 sacks yesterday. I'll go Tuitt, but you can give it to anyone on that defense and probably be right about it.
Yeah, look, I mean, how about the defensive game ball altogether?
Yeah, just a team.
How about a team game ball? And offensive side of football, how about James Conner? I mean, made a few people miss, 100-yard game, couple of catches, I think, in this game as well, too. He deserves that game ball there. So offense will be James Conner, and I'll give a complete game ball to the entire defense there.
A lot of people counting out James Conner this year. We knew the talent was there. We just knew he had to be healthy for it. I know we're only 5 games into this thing. Things can go sideways in an instant, but Conner's having a really solid season.
Look, we said potentially 1,500 total yards from scrimmage if he stays healthy, right?
What's he at right now? I don't think he's on pace for that, but he's probably not too far off.
Hold on a minute here, and I will let you know. How we doing on time, Alex?
We're closing in on 2 hours. Someone said it'd be a 2-hour show, and probably right about that.
And here we are. And
it's at 452. It looks like yards from scrimmage right now.
So 452 divided by 5, a little less than 100 a game, right?
90, yeah, and then over, yeah, it's 1446 over a 16-game season, so he's actually like right on pace for it.
So not bad. He obviously got to stay healthy to get it, but I don't think it's impossible. Chris Bailey writes in, Happy Victory Monday, though it did come at a price with Bush out for the season and Pouncey and Hilton dinged up as well. Are there any plans to ask Dr. Mel onto the show? That's another, look, I talked to Dr. Mel via DM last night and mentioned that we'll probably have her on the show. So we'll see how time goes. Maybe we'll do it Wednesday, Alex. Record Dr. Mel early and then have
David Beauclair.
Yeah, David Beauclair on a little bit later there. His question is a simple one. With Bush out, who was wearing the green dot? It seems like communication remained at a very high level.
That was Robert Spillane, who wore it and was on the field for every single snap, including in dime. And as we mentioned earlier, Cam Sutton seems to indicate that Spillane will maintain that role. We'll hear from Tomlin tomorrow. I'm sure he'll be asked about it. He better be asked about it. A very important question, but it seems like Spillane is the dude going forward.
And Chris is from East Sussex, England. How about that?
Ooh.
We're big overseas, Alex. How do you like us now? Let's see. Carlos Torres, first time email, long time listener. All right, another first timer here, Alex. With the way the Steelers have been playing and the game against the Titans and the Ratbirds coming up, what are the odds we get those games flexed up to primetime games? Also, Big Dan seems to be a hot commodity now. Days being traded for a 6th rounder. If only we kept him on the 53 this year. I don't think Big Dan was traded, was he?
I just looked up McCullers yesterday. He hadn't played a snap in. Stop with McClendon? Maybe he got confused with McClendon.
Yeah, I don't know what he's talking about Big Dan. About Titans, I know for a fact the Titans game will not get flexed. All right. I don't know about. I haven't even looked ahead to the Baltimore game.
Yeah, I haven't either, but certainly could see that one get flexed.
The Titans game though should be there's very few early games next week on CBS, so very good chance that people listening to this will be able to watch that game in their local viewing area.
Yeah, good point. Yeah, that'll be a massive matchup, obviously.
Tim Clark writes in, am I the only one who was concerned when the first shot we had of Rudolph on the field versus the Browns, he hadn't fully secured his helmet? He's got a picture of Rudolph with only one of his buckles snapped here. I did not notice that one there, Tim.
Probably should keep both buckled with Myles Garrett on the field.
Nick Napak writes in, hey, Dave, I know you guys get a lot of crap emails or comments on the site, but I want to give the opposite. Love the podcast and love all the content on the site. Sunday nights after Steeler wins are my favorite because all the posts are like gifts that keep on giving. Anyway, just want to say I love y'all's work. Be blessed. Thank you, Nick. Thanks for that. This guy busy as beavers after the game. Had 30-something posts up on the site on Sunday on SteelersDepot.com. 30-something.
Yeah, 34.
Probably going to have close to that amount today as well too. Can't speak enough about what the job the team's doing there. Ted Webb writes in, Steelers better than we thought. I'm always thinking 10-6, maybe 11-11 high side, 9-7 low side with a healthy Ben and defense playing, say top 15. But with the way the D is playing and Ben just making plays when he has to, say for example versus the Browns 14 or 22, 162 yards and a TD isn't eye-popping, but the Steelers dominated Browns. This team has me thinking Super Bowl or bust, or am I getting ahead of my skis? And maybe I should take off my Steelers glasses. The Bush loss will hurt, but can only imagine what the offense can do if Ben gets hot. Thanks, Ted Webb. Ted, look, just game at a time, brother. Obviously, there was good reason to think this Steelers team going to have a good chance to make a run at this thing right from the get-go, and at 5-0, going to take a heck of a damn collapse for them not to make the playoffs now. Hope those words don't come back to bite me. But look, I mean, it's okay to be excited about this team right now.
Absolutely. I mean, they have a roster, to be competitive, to make a serious run. They'll face some really quality teams eventually with Baltimore. It's going to be a great test. Tennessee this week will be a big litmus test, and with Kansas City down the road. Well, they got a great roster overall, and this is the roster to win a Super Bowl. If there was a group that's going to do it, this is the group. Not saying it will happen, but they got a chance, and we'll keep watching them.
Cosmo Moore writes in. What a great name, Cosmo Moore. Hey guys, I'm not impressed by this punter. Can you give us a comparison to how his numbers stack up versus Jordan Berry from last year? Shout out to the pass protection for keeping the helmet swinger pretty quiet today. Cosmo Moore from L.A. Cosmo, look, you ain't going to get an argument. Colquitt has not been very impressive, to say the least, right now. Jordan Berry seems like a huge upgrade right now compared to Colquitt.
Yeah, the numbers don't look pretty, the gross nor the net, although I would have liked to see Justin Lane or someone down that one that went in the end zone for a touchback, so a 20-yard net really hurt you yesterday. The holds have been good. There was one bad snap
Boy, he
yesterday.
did a good job on that. I looked at that.
Yeah.
That was one of the first things I ran to the TV tape, and boy, that ball was flat on the ground, and it was
Was it
like,
a bad snap?
Yeah, it was. Yeah, it was outside. I think. Yeah, it was
Okay.
outside, and it was like magic. That ball all of a sudden stood up.
Yeah.
It's almost like he dribbled it real quick and pulled it up. But he did do a good job on that.
Yeah, that's at least the second time this year he's handled a poor snap from Canada, so there's value in that. But yeah, I mean, Colquitt seems average, and just hopefully this unit plays well and doesn't allow a lot of net, but it's not been very good.
Stefanski says he feels Baker's pressing against better defenses. What did I say at the top of the show? Felt like he kind of loved pressing a little bit there. Just saw that fly through the Twitter machine there. Todd Jitzler writes in, hey guys, I just want to say how much I appreciate your unbiased assessment of the team. Sometimes we as fans see things through black and gold colored glasses and not what's really happening. I know I can count on the facts and probabilities based on each individual players' work on the field. Regarding Fitzpatrick, you have been 100% correct on this weekend. He made a splash play. You both also correctly called it Mayfield wouldn't finish the game. I am very concerned about what appears to be the loss of Bush for the year. What can you tell me about Spillane and the team moving forward without Bush? Like Fitz, Bush has been quiet most of the season, but that hasn't always been a bad thing. Teams must account for their whereabouts every play. We are headed for such a long stretch, and I hope we can pull out at least a couple of road wins there. Todd, I think we covered Spillane pretty good and kind of what we're expecting here moving forward. Don't expect him to go to the Pro Bowl there. I think my gut, and this all stems back to some things I wrote and said based on preseason last year, and it was only preseason there. I think he's got a level of athleticism to there that most people miss.
Yeah, I mean, he can move. He's functional. Obviously not to the level of Devin Bush. I know no one's trying to make that comparison, but he's not immobile for sure. It'd just be a question of just overall spacing concepts and third down and against outside zone stuff. I mean, how well he'll do. But yeah, he's a good tackler, big hitter. We saw that. He lit up Austin Hooper yesterday, and he's been a really good special teams player too. I mean, he had, I think, 11 tackles in 8 games last year, so he might have made a Pro Bowl for special teams. If they keep him on that unit, he could still do it, but it's a loss. We'll see, though.
Look, I think the best comparison for what Steeler fans are used to is maybe an L.J. Fort type, okay?
Do you think Spillane is like L.J. Fort in terms of athletic ability and just overall profile? Or are you saying that from a next man up standpoint?
I think from an overall profile, I get that feel from him, man. He moves out in space a little bit better than what I think he's given credit for. Sideline to sideline and all. And
I think that's true. I don't think he's at Fort's level though.
Okay, well we're gonna have a nice probably selection of games here to find out more about him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think he's got some talent. I mean, this guy can play. I mean, he's a downhill physical guy. I don't think he's a terrible athlete either, but I don't think he's quite on Fort's level.
I think with what he brings with his familiarity, I think those are twofold. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Look, are there more talented guys laying around in the NFL? But how many can you bring in and adjust that quick? You know.
Right, and calling your defense is such a obviously huge part of this. You just can't bring somebody in and expect them to run the show.
So if he gives up a touchdown in coverage to a tight end next week, people come calling for our heads, I'm sure. But I think he's serviceable. I think he's the proper choice where they are right now.
Yeah, I think he's probably the best choice in a crappy situation.
All right,
That's how I frame it.
Matt writes in, given that defenses are going to start looking at Claypool in motion on these goal line runs, do you see the Steelers adjusting that play, and if so, how? Yeah, that's a great point. It's one I brought up a little while ago there. I think there's a lot of stuff you can do with that. I think you can do some misdirection to the other side. You're gonna have defenses wanting to flow whatever way Claypool's in motion there. So there's a lot of different things that you can, I don't know, maybe a kind of an unprotected crack toss or something out the other way, you know. Definitely some things you can do in the passing game off of that in short area space on kind of a quick throw or something like that, fullback leak, whatever. But you should be able to build off of what they're doing with Claypool in motion at the snap of the football, especially within the 10-yard line.
Agreed. It'll be very exciting to see how they build off of it because the possibilities are really limitless, and you're just always ahead in that cat and mouse game against defenses.
I don't think we've talked the last about that topic right there. I think we'll be talking more about it. Michael Gallupo writes in, just finished listening to your Friday podcast before the game started, and now I'm laughing out loud as I watch Minkah Fitzpatrick returns Baker's first pass to the house. Unbelievable that some Steeler fans want anyone on this defense benched. Y'all keep up the great work. You guys are amazing. Thank you, Michael. Look, we just try to keep it real and try to keep everybody grounded here instead of bouncing off the walls from week to week here. We appreciate the comment there, Michael. One last one here. Michael F. Sinclair, Dave and Alex. First, can we ask the Yingers why everybody wants the unsuccessful quarterbacks like Haskins on the Steelers roster? The shiny new Washington football team, now third-string quarterback, comes around and we'll all seem to forget just a month ago all Yinzers wanted Josh Rosen. I've talked about it, just shiny object syndrome. Second real question, with all the so very evident at least a couple on Hayden PI calls we've seen this year, will they bring back challenge in PI? Is it they just immediately adopt table or throw out or carefully adopt, meaning plan, and we see a more detailed, comprehensive interruption to the rule before being integrated into the game? So could we see the PI come back around as a set-in-stone rule, say in 2020, for instance? Thanks in advance, guys. Keep up the stellar work. You get me through my work week. It's greatly appreciated. What do you think about Bill and potentially the PI challenge coming back?
I mean, I don't know what the competition committee and rules committee thoughts are, but I think the NFL is a lot more fun to watch this year without the ability to challenge PI than it was last year with the ability to challenge PI. So I'm fine the way it is, even if you are going to get some calls wrong occasionally.
Okay, do I have any more here? I want to make sure we get all these in. Got a good turnout today in the comments here. We're getting a little bit long here. This one's about Juju. Try Edward Arnold. Send me that question again. Make sure I get it on the Wednesday show there. All right, Alex. Got a lot in today there. In the meantime, we will be back on Wednesday, and you can follow me on Twitter at Steelers Depot. Follow Alex on Twitter at Alex_Kozora. Follow the show at Terrible Podcast. Email the show, theterriblepodcast@gmail.com. If you like what we do and you want to donate to the cause, go to SteelersDepot.com. Also, if you want an ad-free version of SteelersDepot.com, go to the site, hit the ad-free button. For $25 for one calendar year, you can have an ad-free version of SteelersDepot.com. Alex, great work, great job by you and the guys over the weekend. Steelers 5-0. Play the Titans in week 6 or week 7. We'll start getting everybody ready right away. Alex and I will have the YouTube live session tonight, 7 o'clock Eastern. Get on YouTube. Follow Alex on Twitter for all the details on that as well, too. We should have a great turnout, we think, tonight for that as well. So until Wednesday, as always, thanks for listening to the Terrible Podcast with Dave and Alex.